This is Hit Publish, the first podcast dedicated to uncovering heroic businesses secretly navigating the ever-changing digital landscape. Each episode, we'll play host to leaders in their fields discussing their adoption of the latest digital trends and related technologies, addressing the total effects on the way we market businesses and brands across all of our industries. And occasionally, we'll pay homage to the technology giants who dictate our online lives and the platforms they provide, reminding ourselves of the self-inflicted and inevitable misuse of personal data. So if this all sounds good to you, skip the terms and conditions, ignore the privacy policy, and hit subscribe. On this episode of Hit Publish.
I'd encourage people to get on LinkedIn, because LinkedIn's kind of like where Facebook was about 4 or 5 years ago.
Yeah, that's very
and
true.
There's still a lot of organic value to be had on LinkedIn. I think it's quite a big step to actually hand over what is probably your personal mobile phone number to a business. So if you're happy to do that, then I think you're probably going to be happy to get the message. Instagram, Pinterest, or something new, even starting to rival Amazon. Because as huge as Amazon is, I think there's just that nice natural fit between a social network and buying stuff.
On this episode, we met up with Jonathan Pollinger, a social media trainer whose mission it is to equip you to grow your business using the right social media channels for you. Jonathan provides tailored social media training using the latest tips, tools, and techniques to make your social media work hard. Whether that's raising awareness of your business or charity, helping you to attract more customers, or boosting conversions, sales, and profits.
We had a real deep dive with Jonathan. He gave us his predictions for social media marketing trends coming up in the future. We covered social media strategy, and he gave quite a nice breakdown of what they can look like for small businesses. We also covered his process for training someone to be good at social media.
You'll find our usual non-5-minute news update, some quick-fire questions, and a reminder to subscribe to Hit Publish, your digital marketing, online advertising, and technology-inspired podcast. All the show notes, links, and other episodes can be found online at hitpublish.digital.
Hello all, and welcome to joining us for another episode of Hit Publish. How are we all?
Good.
Fantastic.
It's been a little while, hasn't it? Well, it feels like it's been a little while.
Feels like a few weeks.
We recorded like a bulk of episodes, and we've had a bit of a break, and now we're back at it. Today we're joined by Jonathan Pollinger. Hi, Jonathan.
Hello.
Thank you for joining us. It's great to have you here. We're going to jump into all things social media today, and quiz you on some stuff, and hoping you can give us some top tips.
Looking forward to it.
Yeah, good. Let's not mess about. Let's jump straight in at the deep end, and I'm going to ask you, Jonathan, how do you train someone to be good at social media?
Great question. I think there's probably two sides to this. You have to make sure that they've got an understanding of the bigger picture, your more sort of strategic stuff, asking them questions like why do they want to use social media, and try and establish that and create a plan and a strategy around that. But also they really need to be sharp on the what I would call tactical or day-to-day side in terms of the actual channels that they are using. And if there was a third thing, I guess it's kind of like understanding where they're at, because when I started off 10 years ago training, it was a very, very different scenario to how it is now. Everybody back then was kind of like at the same level, as in they didn't know anything about social media.
That's it.
But now you've got people not many, but you might have somebody that hasn't got a Facebook page. You've definitely got people that hasn't, say, used Facebook ads, but then you've got other people that want to know how to set up a remarketing campaign, for example. So there's very different ends of the spectrum. So it's important to find out somebody's level of ability and tailor an understanding and tailor the training to that.
It's for us, certainly anyway, we feel that a big part of social is down to how good the creative is and the content that you're putting out.
Yep.
And I think however you do it, how do you go about training Steve the accountant, who's isn't not great at that kind of thing, to put out content, or is that something you don't really do? It's more based on the strategy over content.
Yeah, no, absolutely. That would sort of fall into the strategy totally. And I think you're right in terms of content being important now, more important than say a few years back, because again, if you go right back to the beginning, just simply by having a presence on a social network meant that you were ahead of the competitors. But now all your competitors are on there, so you need to do something to stand out. And the best way to do that is with your creative, having a creative campaign and coming up with content. A word that I bandy around an awful lot in training, that content has value really for your audience. If you can define what is valuable for your audience out there, then that you're a long way towards having a successful social media strategy.
So do you get into the specifics when training of content?
Sure.
I'm not saying, or maybe you do. Do you literally give tips on what specific content should be posted for a particular industry type?
Sure, absolutely. I think that's really important, because sometimes people are perhaps struggling when it comes to ideas and creativity, and even even the potential that is there, the different types of content that you can put out. Not everybody, for example, is aware that you can do live video these days via most of the social networks. So it's pointing out what's possible and totally giving specific ideas about what people do. I mean, just this week, for example, I was working with a charity in Brecon Mind, and a tip that I pass on to them that's useful for a lot of businesses is basically taking textual content or stats and turning it into an image using a tool like Canva or something like that. And it's basically making the text or the data that you've got more interesting, making it
an
stand
infographic
out.
type.
Exactly,
type thing,
or an infographic would be another example of that.
Okay. What is a social media strategy in your mind, and why do you feel a business needs one?
Great question. Some people would say there is no such thing as a social media strategy. I've even got into one or two debates with people online about this. But no, I firmly believe that there is. It's basically, for me, it's an overarching plan of how everything is done when it comes to social. I mean, it could make part of the marketing, your overall sort of marketing strategy, or it could be a standalone document. But I think it's important to have one, even if that document is just a sheet of A4 basically. And how I understand strategy, there's 1,000,001 definitions of what a strategy is. But for me, I like to keep things simple, so keep it into 3 parts. So there's an overall goal, so that's the sort of ultimate objective. So typically with a business, that probably is going to be increasing sales, but it might be something like improving customer services, for example. So a real high level business goal. And then underneath that, I would have smart objectives as the second section of the document. So that would be usual stuff that is very specific, measurable, etc., that kind of thing. So example there would be number of visitors you're getting to your website via Facebook, for example, something that you can actually measure. But if you are an e-commerce website and you're getting a lot of traffic coming in from social, then you can kind of make that link to increase sales, because if you're getting all that traffic in, then there should be conversions, and that will lead to your ultimate goal. So if you've got a whole bunch of objectives underneath your main goal, then if you achieve most of those objectives, and definitely if you achieve all of them, then you can't really fail with the goal. Third part of it, which is usually where most of the work has to go, is really what you were talking about earlier in terms of content and day-to-day stuff. So that's your actual plan. Sometimes I would actually sort of call that a content plan, or it would include a content plan. So that's being very specific in terms of what you're going to post every day, what channels you're actually going to use, what tools you're going to use, and basically giving people a structure that they can follow to achieve social media success.
It's interesting that you say that. Actually, it's a question later down, but I'll ask it now because it ties in nicely. Where do you stand on social media channel management as a service? Do you feel that it really should only be carried out by those that are in the business day to day and know everything there is to know about it, and to capture those of the moment things? Or do you think it's something that's better outsourced to a professional?
Mixed feelings, because in a sense, I was thinking about this the other day actually, and in a sense, that entire industry of social media management is effectively my competition as a thing about it, as a social media trader. So perhaps my natural answer would be, it's rubbish. You don't want to go to a social media manager. But no, seriously, I think it definitely has its place, particularly for large organisations. And if they can afford it and it is something that they want to outsource, then that's absolutely fine. But I think the affordability is important because a lot of small businesses, whilst they're not going to have, perhaps they think they're not going to have the time to do it themselves, don't usually think that outsourcing is a good idea, because nobody knows their business as well as they do. And by the time you've got the sort of mechanics and process in place to pass on relevant information to the person that's managing the social, well, you kind of could have done it yourself. So that's where I come in and help to put people in a position where they can do it.
And confident enough to do it themselves.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly, yeah.
We had a guest on a previous episode from Cloudera, which is it's a huge Silicon Valley enterprise business, and they do everything in-house, as you'd expect. But they're sort of making use of AI platforms, aren't they, that generate content for them, but specifically tailored to an individual, for example, in the office, and they'd share that content. And so as opposed to having just a team of people that focus on that, it can be anyone doing it within the business, down to admin, and they can share content that's relevant to the business. Do you think sort of AI and those kind of tools are a good thing, or do you feel it's a bit generic?
Yeah, I think it can definitely help. Definitely something that's coming in, and I think we're going to see more of it in terms of helping with creativity, helping come up with ideas, finding out what is popular out there, what people are talking about, and all that sort of thing. And I like that idea of people throughout the organisation getting involved with social. I think that's great. That's usually one of the things that I try and pass on with training, is that you really cannot underestimate the power of employees being engaged and then sharing out your content. Simple example, you can sort of struggle to get, say reach of 1,000 people with your one person posting in the organization. But hey, if you've got 5 people with, and this is probably going to be on the modest side, but keep maths simple because I'm not very good at maths, but if you've got 5 employees with 200 connections on LinkedIn and they all share that update from the company page, then hey, you've got 1,000 people who probably are going to be interested in the content because they're connections of those people working for you. That's a powerful thing to do. So yeah, combination of AI and getting people involved throughout the organization, I think that's a good one.
If I can play sort of devil's advocate for a little bit, I have heard before of sort of within our industry, people going, well, they don't like when businesses get involved in their own social media because they feel like the managers or directors go to their kids or their nephews or whatever, go, you're 14, you know what Facebook is, you do it. As opposed to sort of finding a professional who has spent the years learning the algorithms and producing good content. So there's sort of counter argument against, rather than get people in-house to do it, to outsource.
Because they're not experts. I disagree with that, actually. I think ultimately what they've got to say, content, and because of their experience, because of their knowledge of the industry, because of their expertise, if they can get that out directly in their voice, I think that's a hugely powerful thing, more powerful than outsourcing it. Like I said before, nobody's going to understand their business as well as they do. And I think perhaps, I am a bit sort of geeky and try and get to the bottom of all the algorithms and all the rest of it. But I think perhaps from a general business perspective, that's probably a little bit overdone these days. All these cheats and tricks and tips and stuff around that. You can't do any of that without the content, can you? So the content has to come first. And
I think do it properly is the general rule.
Exactly, and then worry about everything else afterwards. Yeah, but you need that source of content first.
It's interesting you touched on algorithms. We had a question with regards to that as a trainer, when you do one-to-one sessions or group sessions even. How often do you need to change that training strategy based on what the algorithms are doing?
Not too much. I think, again, from a general business perspective, there are tweaks that particularly Facebook make on a fairly regular
Every 2 minutes,
basis.
it feels like, but yeah.
Yeah. But I think generally, it all comes back to that value thing. If you're providing value, then that leads to engagement, and specifically the algorithms are usually around engagement, as in all of a sudden they're giving more engagement to, say, video compared with something else, or they're focusing on family and friends more than businesses. But if you're providing that value, then your content is going to be engaged with, and that's going to help awareness. You're getting, in simple terms, if you're getting a lot of likes, comments, and of course shares on a post or a tweet, then that's really going to help the number of people that see it. So, to answer the question, yes, it's important to be aware of them, but as I said before, I think you can kind of like overdo it. It's sometimes best just to focus on the fundamentals,
on the content, and again doing it properly, isn't it? And I think you achieve the results naturally and organically anyway.
I think so. The only place perhaps it would come in is with a channel. So, like I mentioned, if there's specific focus on something like, say, IGTV or live video, then, and you're sort of like getting bonus points effectively for going there, then certainly, particularly if I'm working with agencies or social media people, then that would be something to focus on, because you're kind of perhaps missing out a little bit if you're not taking advantage of that. A specific example would be sort of like right now, I'd like encourage people to get on LinkedIn, because LinkedIn's kind of like where Facebook was about 4 or 5 years ago.
That's very
and
true.
There's still a lot of organic value to be had on LinkedIn, whereas on Facebook, pretty hard now to get a post go, well, I'd say virtually impossible to get a post to go truly viral without advertising. Whereas on LinkedIn, if you look at your feed, you'll see there's like posts with hundreds, if not thousands, of likes that you're seeing every day. So it is possible to do that.
That's right. I think isn't it that if someone likes a post that you publish on LinkedIn right now, that is seen by their followers. Yeah. So it really is. Yeah, it really is. It's quite rife at the moment. The organic reach. That's right. Well, that was one of the questions we had actually. What are you observing in organic reach across all channels? I mean, we're aware LinkedIn is really where Facebook is, and Facebook is really dropping off. But what about
Facebook is basically like pay to play at the moment.
It is. Yeah. What about Instagram? I know Instagram is a channel that you focus on also. Are you seeing that follow same suit as Facebook?
Yes. In fact, just very recently, there's quite a few, bit anecdotal. There'll probably be some research and data soon, but very recent reports coming in that stories views are dropping for people. So perhaps there could be a bit of an advertising push, or there has been an algorithmic change there, although too early for Facebook to actually confirm that. But I wouldn't let that put people off, because I think stories is a great opportunity, and more users and people are flocking to look at stories. They like them. There's several people I know, including myself, where I start now. I was sort of like just sort of flicking through stories, but now sometimes I just literally kind of almost, it's like you're hitting the play button, isn't it, on the video, where you just sort of let it roll through. And I think, that's probably the behavior of more people now. So stories is definitely a good place to be. Posts seem to be pretty much constant on Instagram, I'd say. It doesn't seem to be any huge changes algorithmically there. And Facebook, you summed it up well. It's pretty much a pay-to-play arena now. Twitter hasn't really changed. I always sort of take the mick out of Twitter a little bit. They don't really change much anytime.
Well, they've got a dark mode now.
Yeah,
they have got a dark mode now. Yeah,
I love Twitter, by the way.
Yeah. Well, I used to, but I must admit I've fallen out of love with Twitter.
What?
Yeah, perhaps we'll come on to that. But in terms of the algorithm, I would say, no sort of big changes. But what I would say with Twitter is that if you are looking, I think it's changed in terms of how people use it. So I don't think people are clicking on links anymore, broadly speaking. That's a bit of a sweeping statement. But basically, if you've got a blog post you want to attract attention to, or a podcast, or your website, basically don't bother on Twitter. I wouldn't use Twitter for that. That's quite a major thing to say, but that's just kind of how I feel, and I've got evidence to back that up. So,
what is working on Twitter? If Twitter was a platform where a business does excel, what are you telling or advising people to do on that platform?
Conversation, in simple terms. Conversation, which is difficult for businesses because that takes quite a lot of time.
Yeah.
But I think it's back to basics with Twitter. So it's like, looking out for conversations. Twitter's great for that because it is totally public, unlike the other networks. So you can literally find people that are talking about your product, and if you're really lucky, they'll actually be saying, "Can somebody recommend a web designer, a plumber, a TV repairman, or whatever?" And
I've seen that a few times actually.
Yeah.
that's kind of the tweet that you want to engage with as a business. But of course, there's others. There's conversations going on around anything. They're easy to find through hashtags. So if you can join in conversations, again, add value, you'll get noticed that way. Another one for Twitter I think is really good for is relationship building. So a bit like LinkedIn. So good for B2B networking, getting to know people, and also great for, which has worked for me a couple of times, reaching out to high profile people, because you're not going to have a high profile person's email address or phone number, and even if you had their email address, they're probably never going to see it. Whereas Twitter, not all of them are going to manage their own tweets, but depending on how high profile they are, a lot of them will be. And it's a great way to get to know their content, get to know them, and you can get lucky and get a reply. So
I think
so those two things.
What do you call it? You call it hand-to-hand combat with Twitter, and I think as well, Twitter does quite well from a support perspective.
Yes,
certainly that's the first place I go when I want to moan, which is often, of course. Should startups and small businesses focus efforts on achieving goals organically, or is paid ads the way forward?
I kind of touched on this before. I think they should definitely start off organically, so they find their feet and see how they're going. One thing that I think small businesses could do more of is use insights and analytical tools that are available. I think a lot of people are sort of like flying by the seat of their pants when it comes to posts and tweets and the content that's being put out there. But you can learn an awful lot by analysing, seeing what's working well, seeing what's working not so well. So I think people should do that. And then once they've got their head round what type of content is working, then have a look at boosting a few posts. I wouldn't advertise on Twitter in a million years, but on Facebook and Instagram and LinkedIn, absolutely.
We heard you say boost a post, and
let me get you out.
There are people, us included, to be fair, that are really against boosting a post, and there's some people, and we had this conversation last night. But I think there's a time and a place for it. But
if you want to test out lots of little bits of content on Facebook, you can do a quick £5-10 beat.
That's right, or event-based or really targeted location-based for just at that moment kind of stuff. But as far as treating boosting a post as some kind of advertising campaign, do you feel it does the job in comparison to going through Ads Manager and setting up a campaign and retargeting and that kind of stuff?
Yeah, I can see from an agency perspective why you would consider it not proper ad as such, but I think for small businesses, I think it's good. I think it's a good way for them to get into it because they can understand the concept a bit more easily. So I would suggest it's important maybe as a sort of like routine before looking at all the other options, like more sophisticated things like retargeting, lead generation ads.
I guess if you're doing it yourself, that's a tough learning curve to jump into Ads Manager or whatever. And so, boosting a post is going to be a quick fix.
I might hate you for doing it, though, just saying.
And I think the post, it has to be, which might be where you're coming from, it has to be the right post, doesn't it? There's no point just sort of like directing somebody to a blog post or something. It's got to be a stronger call to action than that.
From your perspective and your own business goals as a trainer, as a social media trainer, what strategies or ad strategies are working for you? So
I think it comes back to value and engagement. Just comes back to the simple sort of stuff, really, getting back to basics. So trying to the first thing, I think most important thing is to switch around your natural inclination, because your natural inclination with social media is kind of like, right, I've got a blank compose post box, compose tweet box, and I'm gonna fill that. But try and stop that. And before you actually type anything or take a photo or shoot a video, think about the audience. What are they actually going to enjoy? What are they going to find useful? What are they going to find valuable? So kind of like turn it around. And so if you can always do that, then I think that will help you to be successful. And that also, once you're up and running, that helps you do things like a really good strategy on Instagram. It's amazing how many people don't do this, but reply to every comment, for example. I think absolutely each and every comment you should reply to. I've got like one client who went from 1,000 followers to 20,000. She's just hit that in 3 years, and she's getting like 400 comments on 2 or 3 posts every day, but replying to every single one of them. So she is having to spend 5 hours on Instagram every day, but she's been paid by 4 or 5 brands now to do stuff. So but that is because she's got in her mindset, what does my audience want? So she's putting out content that her audience wants, hence the massive amount of comments that she's getting. But then if you get a reply back, then people love that. If you put a comment on there and you're coming back and you're having a bit of a conversation, then that's great. Whereas if you post something up and you've gone out of your way as a consumer of the content, or as an actual consumer to make an effort, then I think it's really important for the person, business or brand to come back. I've got an expression for it actually. I call it shaking the digital hand. So for me, it's like you're putting your hand out and then somebody's replying, putting their hand out, and you're just ignoring it. If you do ignore it, so you've got to like shake that. You've got to like shake that hand.
I mean, on the subject of comment. Sorry, mate, go on.
I was going to say you touched on it there, but do you get involved with influencers and stuff? You've just got this obviously client you're working with is really increased their followers. Do you?
A little bit, but not like a lot. But I think that's, if we're looking ahead sort of to trends for next year, I think that's going to be a bigger avenue for businesses, particularly micro influencers that are going to perhaps be more affordable. That's going to be sort of part and parcel of a social media strategy. In the same sort of like section where I might be talking about advertising, paid advertising, then I think probably paid micro influencers is going to be a section in there as well. So I think we're not quite there yet, but it's going to be a bigger thing.
They've got a bit of a bad rap. Influencers at the moment with sort of
fake stuff. Fraud,
exactly. What's your take on that? As a trainer, will you be sort of recommending that as an avenue, or will you sort of perhaps take a step back and see what comes of?
Oh yeah, definitely recommending it, but I think you'd have to really do your research to make sure that the influencer you're working with is genuine, and you've got to get to know them really well so that both parties, that's the key to the success of any business relationship. Both parties have got to be clear on their expectations, what they're going to get out of it and what they are getting out of it. So I think that's important. And I have noticed that quite a few agencies springing up now, aren't there? I think there's one called Kindred that's just launched, that's sort of like aiming to match the businesses and brands with influencers. So presumably they're going to do the donkey work and the verification and the sort of trust aspect of it. So that could be an option for small businesses to go for via an agency.
You were touching earlier on comments and replying. Do you do any training around sort of brand crisis and when those comments are negative and how to handle those?
Funny, something, yes is the answer. I get asked that an awful lot. I think there's like 3 parts to that. First of all, you've got to step in there pretty quick. I think speed is quite important. If you've got there's complaints and there's complaints, isn't there, in the sense that it could be a legitimate complaint or it could be just somebody having a rant because they're not very, very happy. And of course, there's a lot of that. So I think, first step is to acknowledge it. And at the same time, I think, unless it clearly is an unjustified rant, to apologise, even if it's not really your fault. Like say it might be a delivery company's fault and not your fault. But I think, that's you've got to apologise. It can be tough to say sorry, as we know. But I think that's really important. So speed, saying sorry. Then putting it right, I think that's important. So fixing whatever the issue is. So delivery hasn't turned up. So send out, don't try and, unless it's real easy fix, just send out another one. Just get it sorted.
Yeah.
And if 2 turn up, then, never mind. Just have to write that off. And then, possibly putting it, even going further than that and putting it right. So doing something nice, like sending them a voucher or even a gift or another product. If it's like quite a serious issue that's being
You can turn that around. And
Exactly, yeah.
Quite often, yeah.
Plenty of
Turn around
case
like a
studies
positive
on
moment.
that. Yeah, totally. Where people have started out as being a moaner, and then turned out to become an actual advocate.
Brand loyalties, yeah.
Exactly, because the whole thing, if you are going through that process, anybody can see that, can't they? It's in the public arena, and so it's not just the person that you've turned into an advocate, but you might be picking up a whole bunch of other customers and advocates, and certainly doing no harm for your brand image along the way. Because at the end of the day, companies are run by humans, and humans make mistakes. So no company is going to be infallible.
Have you ever been or had to give advice in an incident that is a brand crisis incident? So not just an individual having a complaint, but hordes of people. Something and hordes of people.
Fortunately, not.
Yes, good.
Is the answer. I would probably leave that to the PR agency who works for the company, and neatly sidestep that one.
Indeed. Should we do some news?
Yeah.
Let's do some news. Sam, 5 minutes on the clock. Let's see if we can actually do it this time.
Okay, 3, 2, 1, and go.
Facebook dating. We spoke about this briefly in the past, and it's now sort of starting to come to light. It's in 20 or so countries now, more recently in the US. It's interesting how Facebook, all their testing is very rarely on home ground. I think WhatsApp as well, like all their testing that they're doing at the minute is in India. It's interesting that they do that. But anyway, it's now finally in the US. So now it's in the US, we're starting to see screenshots and stuff of how it works, and we've seen a few bits. There's a feature on it called Secret Crush. Now, this allows you to make a crush list out of your Facebook friends and Instagram followers. It's a secret, so your friends and followers don't know that you've done that. However, if they too make their own list and they happen to also select you as a secret crush, something happens. They stole that from where?
They stole that from Tinder.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. But it's sort of more within your network. Because Tinder's stranger based, right? Yeah.
But the concept's from Tinder.
Does the screen fill with hearts when you get?
Who knows? Who knows? It's kind of a awkward social. Like when that moment happens, it's like, now what?
Yeah.
It's like the new marriage record, is it? After friends reunited all those moons ago. But
That's it. So as skeptical as I am about this feature, it sounds quite interesting. And I'd like to know what happens when that sort of connection is made, and sort of what happens between the two individuals as well. I don't know. I just feel like
a lot
it'd
of
be awkward and cringe. Indeed. At the next party or whatever. Yeah. On a more serious note, Facebook, of course, the feature comes with its controversy, as you suspect, and rightfully so. For most, your dating information is really private, isn't it? It's really intimate. And to sort of share those details with Facebook, I'm sure there's no underlying ideas that they've got with it, but it's a little bit twitchy. That kind of information in the hands of Facebook. What's their plan? Yeah, that indeed.
If you've got your relationship status set as married, can you still?
Wonder if they open it up and encourage. Okay, Instagram shopping. We spoke about this as well previously in the past, but it's a new feature really has come out of it. It's got to happen at some point where you can just shop generally, because I think only right now it's open to influencers, and they've got this sticker, right? So this new sticker, Instagram shopping sticker, a product launch reminder. Sticker which allows brands and advertisers to announce the launch of a new product in X amount of days, a bit like they have a countdown sticker or something.
Yeah, they do.
Yeah. So a bit like the countdown sticker, users will then be able to take action prior to the release. So maybe they can check out the website, have a closer look at whatever this particular product is, and then come the time that product is launched, they can immediately buy it through Instagram in a seamless process. That's happening. It's just one step.
It's a nice feature. Instagram shopping is available to all. Just to point that out.
It is it?
Yeah, absolutely, both on stories and on posts.
Oh, okay, so they've opened that up then.
Yeah,
because I think it was originally when it first came out.
It's like a little shopping bag icon.
Okay.
So if you look at Arkle and Wills, it's a client of mine in Cheltenham, you'll see an example of that.
Okay, cool. So is that open?
Can you check out through it as well?
Can you check it? Yeah, can you check out through?
You can. It's a nice experience. It is linked to the website, so you need like a Shopify catalog or something like that.
Okay.
However, the way they've done it, it's pretty much seamless to the purchaser. So as you go through, it's all kind of feels within Instagram and very much sort of like mobile, assuming your website is properly covered, etc. So much so that when you finished and you get rid of the screen, you're back in Instagram. So it's kind of like within Instagram, but it truly will be within Instagram, including Instagram holding payment card details next year. And they're calling product checkout, Instagram checkout.
Yeah, I think that's where that'll be a bit of a game changer, I think.
Yeah.
Certainly for e-commerce. Google Ads is testing a new lead form extension within Google Ads. You'll be interested in this one, Chris, if you don't know already. So now I think it's only open to certain people at the moment for testing, and someone's taken some screenshots and stuff and shared that online. So you, much like you can create all the other extensions, you can now also add a lead gen form. So that lead gen form appears within the search results within the ad, and it's a call to action to click or whatever. We assume a pop-up, because based on the screenshots, you can also upload a background image for the lead gen. So I assume that when you click on the call to action, it pops up and captures some data and information, and then we'll spit it into any or a selection of CRMs.
In a way,
right now.
it kind of cuts up the middleman, guys, on your website.
It does, yeah. And well, we spoke about this. Social is slowly. I wonder how relevant websites will be in 5 years' time.
It's an interesting question.
Yeah, we've had the conversation, and we've concluded that, well, we don't know.
I mean, for lead generation, in terms of filling out a form,
there's 5 minutes.
That's all right. Let's finish this one.
That is something that your socials, so like your Facebook and LinkedIn's offer lead generation form. So everything is like pre-populated, making it really easy for the customer to get the white paper or ebook or whatever it is they're clicking. And I assume, is it the case that that's going to be the same with Google? So if you're logged in with a Google account, is it going to capture your email address?
It will autofill and capture that data.
Yeah,
indeed. I think...
so that puts Google and social ahead of website, doesn't it?
It does.
Website can't capture
You're cutting out the middle. Yeah. It's 5 minutes up. We've got a couple of other bits. We'll hold them off till next week because we've covered a few interesting stories. That's the news. Jonathan, what social media marketing trends are on the horizon that you're seeing? We spoke just during the news, actually, with Instagram shopping. That's obviously going to be a bit of a game changer. But what other things are you starting to see, or are you looking at on the horizon for?
So, every year people say video, and I think it's probably going to be video again next year, because I would like to see, and I encourage clients to kind of get in the mentality where they actually put video in front of photos. I think it's taken us a long time to sort of actually have the courage to take a selfie for business purposes, or of your clients, or even any photos whatsoever. So video being more powerful, I think it would be great if people actually thought video before photos and actually did more of it. It's amazing that you can take video with your tablet, with your phone, really, really good quality, instantly upload it to your Facebook page or wherever. But how many people do it? Really, in terms of percentage of small businesses, probably only about 5%. So I think there's a lot of scope there for businesses to get more involved with video, and I think they will.
There is. I think they're shy. I certainly am. I'm like a ghost.
They are.
You can't find you anywhere.
I think it's that confidence thing, isn't it? That is an unnatural thing to do, to record yourself.
For most people, anyway.
It's
from narcissists.
Just to tell a little story of how the States often lead in these sort of things, and the fact that they do have a different culture, and I think more comfortable with video. I was lucky enough to be in LA in 2012, went to see the Lakers at the Staples Stadium, and there were people like fans walking around with iPhones, basically going up to random strangers and asking them for quotes and to be on camera and stuff, just for their blogs, and this was like 2012, and we're 7 years later, and I think if somebody came up to you at a Premiership football match, put an iPhone in your face, exactly, that would be the reaction. So it's just a different culture,
completely different mentality. Completely different. I think it is that American mentality as well. Have a nice day and all that. I think they like all that, don't they? Vertical video.
It's interesting that IGTV. I'm quite a big fan of IGTV, although the sort of tech media seems to be really down on it. But I think there's a lot of scope there if you're looking for a new channel to explore.
Yeah.
Personally, I do way more on IGTV than YouTube. I prefer it because it's more social, really. If you just look at the sort of definition of social engagement and conversation, all that sort of stuff. And they've moved to have landscape as well as vertical.
That's right.
So I think that's quite a big step.
That's sort of
A bit of a cop out.
yeah.
Yes, I see where you're coming from because it sort of gets away from the true mobile format, but then it does open it up to more people. And if you're recording things like screen sharing, which I do a lot of on desktop to actually show somebody how to do something, it gives me the option of uploading that now, whereas before I couldn't do that. So I think in a way, they compromised, and they rather than I think I'd use the word compromise. Right. Other trends, you mentioned like shopping. I think another one would be messaging. I think that's an interesting one because we've seen how WhatsApp's become more popular. And just yesterday, actually, I've made a switch. I've actually dropped my email newsletter and switched to WhatsApp Business.
Yeah, I did do that. Yeah.
Interview me in a year's time and see if I've started a trend there. Because I think businesses might just start to do that because you've got the sort of more conversational aspects, social aspects of WhatsApp. It's very immediate, comes up on your phone, difficult to ignore, which is a positive if you're a business sending a message, searchable, easy to click links, lots of other advantages, and it's kind of like new and fun. So
what do you think is going to happen
messaging
there?
Could be big.
Yeah, I agree. But what do you think, particularly with WhatsApp? For me, WhatsApp is like it's my private, personal. My family's on there, friends on there. The idea of having ads and annoying things coming through it, which is on the horizon, annoys me. Don't touch me. It's my WhatsApp. Don't mess with my WhatsApp. Leave it. Yeah. And the idea of now businesses being able to come through on it and just sort of encroach on that, is something I don't know. I'm okay with.
I think it's a non-issue because it's just the same as email, as in you can subscribe and unsubscribe. So I think it's quite a big step to actually hand over what is probably your personal mobile phone number to a business. So if you're happy to do that, then I think you're probably going to be happy to get the message.
It's got a trusted, engaged, audience.
Yeah, you've got to be pretty
from a business
engaged.
perspective. The people that are subscribing are genuinely interested. But we've read and seen some tests happening of pushed ads, so much like Messenger. Right, so where they're not,
those might not be so well received.
I think it might be, and also I think it's happening next year. They're bringing all of those apps together, right? So
yes,
Messenger, WhatsApp.
Going to be interesting to see how that works.
Yeah, that'll be. And it seems odd that they're sort of testing these things for WhatsApp, but actually the ultimate goal is to bring it all together anyway.
One app.
So who knows?
How are you finding that, Jonathan? So this switching from emails to WhatsApp.
Yeah, well, it kind of feels like quite a big step, but I'm quite excited by it actually, and it just gives me more impetus to focus on my daily WhatsApp message and to build that list really, to sort of speak to people that are, like we were saying, are engaged enough and interested enough in social media to receive it. And I've now spoken to probably 2 or 3 businesses about using WhatsApp Business, and their reaction has been very very positive. Don't think, as far as I know, need to sort of check in with them. None of them actually sort of like got it off the ground yet, early days, but it's going to be interesting to see how people explore it. I think one thing is it's kind of partly up to me, I guess, is just education. A lot of people aren't, even people listening now, what's that business? They're going to be going, what the hell's that? Yeah. They don't know what it is. So there needs to be a bit of education around that.
Can we shift platforms a sec?
Sorry?
Can we shift platforms? Can we talk about TikTok?
Yes.
Have you started experimenting with TikTok? Are you on TikTok at all?
It's going to be a short conversation because no. But when I read just this morning, actually, a tweet from Matt Navarro, I think it was, saying that it was the most downloaded social app last month. I think I better download it and give it a play. So
Yeah.
my knowledge is limited on the basis that I don't think at the moment it's a thing for business. But as we're saying, the US kind of like lead the way, and I am aware that a few US businesses are starting to experiment on the on the business side. So
their ad platform is interesting.
yeah,
If your demographic is teenagers, Gen Z, then it's the place to be. But then there's argument to say the young audience that it has doesn't have any money.
yeah.
So they're getting student loans too, or something.
Indeed.
And if you're my age, like my millennials or whatever, like on Twitter, you just see people mocking TikTok all the time.
Really? That's interesting.
People hate TikTok.
Why?
On Twitter. It just seems childish, and you see stupid stuff.
So not really any value, just sort of inane,
it's just like it's
inane
for
videos.
having like inane sort of low value, rubbish quality, like.
Well, it is
videos,
it is a bit like that, but if that's where your audience are, well then that's where you need to be too.
Yeah, as a business. But,
be interesting to see how ads kind of like sit with that. 1 minute you're watching a cat playing the piano, and then the next minute there's an ad for an accountancy software system or something. Yeah.
That's how Facebook watches right now, anyway.
Yeah.
Are there particular platforms you focus on when training?
Yes, I tend to focus on the top 5 really by sort of like user numbers. So in ranking order, Facebook, which is very much the daddy in terms of the largest, then Instagram, LinkedIn is actually now the 3rd largest. A lot of people don't realize that. And very, very soon, whilst Twitter is currently number 4, way down in number 4, it's going to be number 5 soon, probably within about 3 months. Pinterest is going to be ahead of Twitter. It's pretty close now. It's difficult to judge because rather, I'll let the listeners and you decide, but let's just say that Twitter no longer publish monthly user figures, which are the figures that all the other social networks use. They've switched to daily. So interesting move there by Twitter. But if you kind of like work out the figures, it's pretty close now between Pinterest and Twitter. And Twitter hasn't grown in terms of user numbers for 4 years now. So basically Pinterest is growing, so it's not going to be long.
What opportunities are there on Pinterest for business?
Well, big for shopping. So big for inspiration, big for any company that can take photos of its products and that sort of stuff. Or if you're in anything like interior design, beauty, fashion.
My mum uses Pinterest.
Absolutely ideal.
Blew my mind. I don't know how she got hold of it, how she downloaded it.
Cool.
She's not a techie person, but
it's nice to hear your mum's made the podcast again.
Yeah.
Get her on as a guest.
We'll get her in.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it's a sort of like showcase, good for raising awareness of your products or your design services, that sort of thing, and for selling stuff, because it's going to be big for, we've touched on social shopping, but another sort of bold prediction might seem crazy, but I'm kind of like thinking fairly far out, maybe 5 to 6 years, I can really see Instagram, Pinterest, or something new even starting to rival Amazon. Because as huge as Amazon is, I think there's just that nice natural fit between a social network and buying stuff. You basically see something you like, you're engaged with it, and you click the buy button. A lot of people are buying stuff now like that, and I think that's
a bold prediction. We'll get you in 5 years' time, and we'll ask that question again. What about Snap? So I know we read this morning, didn't we? The Snappers grew their user base by what?
7 million.
Yeah,
last quarter.
Yeah,
which is quite good.
Again, was to keep an eye on it. I don't train on it because US use it for business, but very, very little activity in the UK when it comes to business. And again, it's the same sort of demographic, isn't it, as TikTok? So unless you've got a very specific audience around that demographic, then probably best to look at one of the other social networks.
Interesting to see what those TikTok and Snap do as they've got their client base now as they turn into
very good point.
Adults with more spending power, etc.
Yeah, very good point.
Yeah, I'm sure we'll see a big rise in advertising on those.
There's argument to say, I guess, that a lot of these platforms will follow a Facebook lead as their users get older.
Yeah.
The platform gets older with them, and it changes and evolves. I feel like Facebook, perhaps you have a view on this, is trying to be in everything.
Yes.
They're trying to
Fingers in
do,
everything,
So-
they're from currency to events to
Dating, you mentioned.
dating. Yeah, indeed. They're trying to be across
Yes.
everything. Do you think that's a good move?
I do, yeah. I think they've done very well in terms of anticipating trends, in acquiring companies, and in acquiring technology. Another one of my bold predictions, actually, which has recently come true, is hardware. That's another area they're getting into with their, not very successfully, but with their, at the moment at least, with their portal. So that could, in future, there could be other devices.
I quite like the ads for Portal. I don't like the idea of it, but I quite like
Yeah.
the ads that they've been up
The ads
to.
are cool.
Yeah. So I think it is smart. And whilst, there is quite a lot of, should we say, it's sort of viewed negatively, the fact that they, depending on a point of view, copy or steal features from other social networks. I think strategically it's probably actually quite a smart move because they've got the resources and intelligence generally to improve the idea, or failing that, they just buy the company or hire the staff. So it's a pretty smart strategy for them to stay ahead of the game. I mean, probably the best known example is, give you a real one, is Instagram, of course, because it was 2012, so 7 years ago. Ask you the question: how many users were on Instagram in 2012?
You'll know better than me. Yeah.
I guess.
300 million. How many are on there now?
1.5 billion or something.
Yeah. So absolutely massive growth over that time. So they've got a smart strategy.
How has social media, actually, before I ask that question, I think this one's probably more relevant. A chunk of our listeners are tend to be e-commerce, clothing brands, fashion brands.
Yep.
When you're training, what strategies are you giving them? I'm basically asking for a top tip for these guys on social media, e-commerce, fashion brands. What's working for fashion? Do you have any tips?
Yeah, so I think that's a really interesting one because I think for years and years people have just been sort of like taking a picture of the coat or whatever it is they want to sell, maybe like one photo.
Buy my coat.
But
please.
yeah, exactly. But it has to be a bit like I feel sort of shops have to offer more experience. The website has got to offer more experience and the social's got to offer more experience. So that's like multiple photos from different angles, clever creative photos. Olive are a good example of that in Cheltenham. So kind of typically they use the flat lay style, but they actually, surprise, surprise, have people wearing their stuff. That's an improvement from what some brands do. So you've got to see people and perhaps even different people wearing the stuff so you can imagine yourself in it. And on that point, of course, we're starting to see AR, augmented reality, coming in. So that will probably start to, well, you can do it now, but it's not really a thing yet. But next year, we're going to be able to try on sunglasses, try on clothes.
Yeah, ASOS are already doing that in part. Yeah, my other half was trying on a dress in the mirror with their phone. Very weird.
Fantastic.
It's cool stuff. Yeah,
it
really is.
So that's going to be really important. So to stay ahead of the game, I think clothing brands, fashion brands are going to have to embrace that. So in summary, I think they've got to try and back to that value thing. Really, they've got to try and offer a bit more value, a bit more experience for the customer. I don't think pricing is going to be so important. I think they're just going to have to differentiate themselves in other ways.
Maybe link back to something you said previously about video as well, sort of thing.
Yes,
some
absolutely.
video of their
Absolutely.
catwalk their clothes and stuff. So
Totally, yeah.
How does the training you provide influence company behaviour on social? So basically, what happens when you leave the room? You've done your training. How do you see that stuff that you've done implemented, and does it work?
Yeah, that can be really satisfying actually, because it's nice to keep in touch. Sometimes that'll be sort of a formal arrangement. Other times it'll just be informal. But to see companies actually do better as a business, that is the ultimate sort of goal, because that's what you're trying to get them to use social media for. So if they're more out there, if they're selling more stuff, if they're becoming more successful, then all of those things are great. Nice to see tactical changes and actual things that you've taught them be implemented. Like say maybe use video or something. But ultimately, it's being more successful, and I think probably getting everybody getting everybody on board as well, that can be interesting for sort of small to medium-sized employees and companies where there's a few employees. Like we were saying before, if you can get social throughout the organisation, that could be a powerful thing. That could be challenging at sort of like C-suite level. So to get the board involved when perhaps they were a bit sceptical beforehand, because you've gone in and talked to the marketing team, then that's pretty satisfying. When the chief exec starts blogging and stuff like that. So that's always a good change to see.
Do you find this is a bit of a deep one, to be honest with you, but with the rise of sort of AI, deepfakes, the political misinformation that's being put out there and headlines and stuff, do you find when you're going into businesses, especially groups of people that you're training, that there's a little bit of resistance, a little bit of skepticism, they're pushing back a little bit?
I would say no, might become more of a thing in future, but do you know what, a lot of people aren't, they're just not aware of that. Unless you're sort of in the business like we are, you're not even really going to know what a deep fake video is. So I don't really think it's much of an issue at the moment. No.
Okay.
But if we start to see mainstream media pick up an example where a whole bunch of people, let's say, have been conned or something like that by a deep fake video, then that's when the awareness is going to shoot through the roof. And that could then be a battle, just as you're suggesting, could be then a battle for me to start suggesting a video strategy for a company, because they're going to be thinking, well, are our customers even going to believe this stuff? So
the training that you provide, is it more sort of about organic and more about sort of being active and engaging on social, or is there more goal-driven stuff, so conversion-related things that you train?
Probably all of that, I would say all of that in equal measure, as I was saying before. So both at sort of goal level, and as a tactical level. I think some trainers might focus on one or the other, but perhaps one of my USPs is that's a contradiction, isn't it? My USP is perhaps that is sort of like all encompassing from high level to tactical day-to-day stuff.
Is the question? I assume the question is on what is your goal, and the answer is always, well, we want to make more sales.
Yeah, it isn't always that, surprisingly. And I like working with charities. I do quite a lot with charities, and that's completely different. Yeah. So that's around fundraising, volunteer outreach, communication with stakeholders. So there's a lot more involved with that. So that can make it more interesting, actually, as a trainer, to try and look at how you can achieve all those things. Because as you rightly suggest, yes, there could be other things like for a business like improve customer services, but even that ultimately it's because they want to get more coin into the area. So
we're running out of time, I'm afraid, Jonathan, but I have got a few questions that I just wanted to sort of do like a quick fire thing.
Sure.
We've not done it before, but I thought you'd be primed to do this with and give it a go with. Yeah, let's do it and see how quickly you do it. So it's just 3 questions. First one, what's your biggest bugbear or don't do that you've seen on social media?
So, probably alluded to this one before, not replying to... That's right. I said not replying to comments, but actually, I can't really name them, but there's a very well-known... Yeah, go on, and I'll say the best-known theme park in the UK. I've got a classic example where they put out on Instagram that they were doing a discount on their day ticket, whatever they call it, and somebody on Instagram has said, well, how do I get this day ticket, because there was no link. So that's like one sort of problem, the fact there was, because you can't put a link on Instagram, so it should have been clear. And as far as I know, like a year later, he's still waiting for a reply. So then they've got a customer that wants to buy their product, wants to go to the theme park, but they haven't bothered to reply. So that sort of bugs me when I see things like that.
Yeah. Indeed. Top 3 tips for growing fast on social. We asked the same question to Geordie Davis, who is a social media manager. She gave some good tips. So what's your top 3 growing fast?
Listen. So do listen to what people are saying out there. So look for the conversations that you can join into. Look for what your audience is going to find valuable and respond to that. Consistency, I think that's really important. So trying to set a goal. So maybe once a day on Facebook, get that post out there and really sort of stick to it. And another one, if it was, say, Instagram, a lot of people want to build Instagram followers, is the reply to every comment. But one really useful tactic that anybody can do, literally like start doing it today, is find relevant companies, maybe local businesses, potential customers, people like that, and start to comment on their posts. That's a massively sort of like underdone one. And that will really, takes time, but will really get you noticed and help you start building relationships in the community and with potential customers.
Agreed. Last one. It might not be relevant, so forgive me if it's not. But top 3 social productivity apps that you use.
Social productivity. Okay, so I like Social Pilot.
Okay.
Don't know if you've heard of that one, but got to give them a mention because they sponsor my podcast. But it is an honest recommendation.
Can you tell the listeners a little bit more what that is?
Yeah, it's basically it's a social scheduling tool. It's a dashboard. Quite similar to Buffer, but with a number of advantages. I'll just give you one sort of feature that I quite like. You can basically post a video to Twitter or any length that you want, because normally I think you're limited to about 45 seconds. So that's a nice feature. And I quite like its robustness. So I'd say it's not for a one-man band, but if you were sort of like social media manager, managing multiple accounts, or you're posting out to social, say 20 times a day on different social channels, it's very strong, robust, industrial.
Is that a paid
posting? It is paid, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And does it have the feature to be able to post directly to Instagram?
Not yet, no, but it sort of cheats because it works with Buffer to do that.
Nice.
Another one, I think yours for 2 or 3? 3. So another one would be, no, this is a really interesting one. I've done some research on this. I think it's basically designed by a guy in his bedroom, but it's called Lee Tags, so you might not have heard of it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's the best one I've come across for finding hashtags for Instagram.
Okay.
So you can basically like key in put in a keyword or a hashtag, and it will come up on the paid version, which is about 5 or something, 30 relevant hashtags.
A bit like a social listening tool.
Not well. It kind of must do listening as part of its analysis, but it's just it's an efficiency time saver for you.
Focused on the hashtags.
And focuses on hashtags. Free version gives you 10, so even the free version is quite sort of handy. And third one, I guess an oldie but goodie, which I love, is Canva. Got the pro version. I know it's about £10 a month. That sort of like free version is very much worth it. Start off with the free version, but if you like want to have all your brand colours in there and your logo, save yourself a bit of time, that kind of thing. It's got a nice. Sorry?
I started off on Canva.
Oh, it's really good.
Yeah,
it's got a nice sort of like resizing option on there. So all of these things you can do on the free version is just like take you a little bit longer, but super tool for, like I said, one of my other tips, adding quotes and data and text to images. Basically putting before and after pictures is a nice simple one for small businesses. So you basically just get a frame, stick say a carpet cleaner, messy carpet beforehand, nice clean carpet afterwards, left and right hand side. Perfect.
Yeah. Good stuff. Thanks. Well, I'll be honest, we had a lot more questions. We knew we weren't going to get through all of them, but because we like what you do, and we had some interesting questions. Perhaps we can have you in again at some point to do V2.
Check up on all my wild predictions.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, indeed. Thanks very much for coming in, Jonathan. How can people reach you if they want to get in touch?
Quite simply, really, because everything is Pollinger Social. So website is pollingersocial.co.uk, and I'm on social media at Pollinger Social.
Awesome.
If they want to keep up to date with daily social media news, then I use WhatsApp Business for that. So it's daily social media news updates, free. And I do my own podcast and Facebook Live every Monday at
Social Media Show.
9 a.m. Indeed, it's called the hashtag Social Media Show. Yeah.
Awesome. It's a good thing to watch. I certainly do. Thanks very much for coming in, Jonathan.
Welcome. It's been great. Really enjoyed it.
Cheers.
Thank you for listening, and we hope you enjoyed this episode.
If you did, please remember to subscribe if you haven't already, and most importantly, leave us a comment or review on Apple Podcasts, as it really helps us to bring you new episodes regularly.
If you've got something to say around digital marketing and would like to feature on a future podcast, please do get in touch in any of the usual ways. You've been listening to myself, Chris.
Me, Ian.
And me, Sam.